Hello there. Welcome to the virtual rec room. I am your host. I'm Batman. And this is Back in the Cereal Box.
It's like Coca-Cola, Levi Strauss, Johnny Carson and Mickey Mouse. The first star was James Dean. Elvis Presley, yeah, he's still the king. Some things are only imitatable. You can't beat an original. Oh, you can't beat an original.
All right, friends and foes, this is Back in the Cereal Box. I am your host, the prophet of pop culture, John Pyka, not Batman. You can call me Johnny, and tonight we're going to be talking about the Batman, and I've got a very special guest host joining me. He is the infamous one, the only Mr. Lucas Leverrett.
The spoon is a tool. They think I'm hiding in the milk, but I am the milk. I wish I could say this nutritional balance is making a difference, but I just don't know. The marshmallows and flakes all roll together in a rush behind the box. Sometimes in the morning, I have to push myself to add the OJ or fruit as I remember everything that happened on the back of the cereal box.
That was outstanding.
I thought you'd like that.
Yeah, that's going to be a clip. Also, welcome to the virtual rec room, my friend and yours, the host of Drew versus the World, Drew Milden. Hey, Drew.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
It was a still image Drew for a sec.
Am I coming out like a robot? Okay.
A little bit. A little bit.
All right. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Batman's a hippie.
Batman's a hippie who?
That's all I had. I leave the
Drew,
suspense
have
in
you
the
met
shadows.
Lucas?
No, I haven't, but I've heard the wonderful things he's been saying. I think he was on a Boba Fett episode, so I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
Big fan.
You stopped in on that one for a second, I think. It's good to see you. Good to be with you.
It's a pleasure.
Johnny, I brought along an accessory that's very important to this discussion.
Yes, it is.
We can't have a discussion about Batman between me and you without this almost equally infamous prop. I'm going to lean on this.
Yeah, for those of you who are watching who understand what that prop means, bravo on you.
Deep cuts and Easter eggs.
Wow, yeah, it's fantastic. There's a story there, Drew. One day I'll tell you. So, for those of you tuning in, yes, I'm wearing the Batman mask for a reason, because we are going to talk about the Batman. But before we do that, I have a couple of acknowledgments to make. If you liked our theme song, that was performed by the Murdering Crows. You can get their new album, Four Bad Crows, on Amazon, Google, and Apple Music. And coming up, April 8th, the release of One Night at the Roxy. It is being published by 7 Star Press. Finally, this story is going to be a standalone novella, and super excited about that. And we want to thank our Buy Me a Coffee supporters, Sharice Collins, Cindy Kep, Brian Huff, Dave Manginelli, Dave Mattingly, Crystal Raven-Jones, Eli Cash, and your name could be in the empty spot at buymeacoffee.com/cerealboxpod. That is the best way to support our programming and make sure that we can bring you great quality. Now, I need to warn everybody that there will be spoilers tonight. We are not going to hold anything back. And the first spoiler, Drew, is that the Batman mask does not work in real life. There's no way Batman could fight crime in this because I have zero peripheral vision and I can't see anything from here down without moving my head. So this has got to go.
So I think the matter at hand is because it's skin tight. So it's very flush on the face. So he has a little bit more eye view. That's why he wears the makeup.
Well, even
I don't know if
without
anybody
my
saw that.
glasses,
There's a lot of
even
makeup.
without my glasses, it was a challenge. So
The deep scientific comparison of a Kmart Batman mask to the high tech,
you're welcome.
crafted.
So that's why you have to appreciate Adam West even more because he didn't have this technology. He just had
No,
the
he
same
definitely
mask
had
he
more
probably
like that. That
Yeah,
thing was
and-
almost flat.
And you remember Michael Keaton? He couldn't turn his head. He had to turn his whole body. Which, in hindsight, watching Batman 1989, I kind of appreciate that. It's a little bit charming to me.
That's a good way to say it. Okay, here's a. I'm gonna give my popular opinion. That's gonna last. It's gonna last this whole thing. My favorite Batman is Batman and Robin with Arnold Schwarzenegger. What you call it? Jim Carrey and
Well, no. Jim Carrey was in the one prior to that.
Okay.
That's Batman Forever.
Yeah.
It's easy to get them mixed up. The Schumacher films are 90s camp at its peak. And
sorry, Batman Forever is my favorite. That's the one with Two-Face when I think what's the name played Two-Face?
Tommy Lee Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones. Yes, that's my favorite.
And you had Drew Barrymore as one of the nameless, lineless. There's a word for those minions.
Mm-hmm.
And Val Kilmer did.
That is indeed the politically correct term for what you were desperately groping for. Yes.
Groping is not the politically term for it.
No, Drew, here's something you need to know about Lucas. Even though he is a raging liberal, he has never been politically correct.
I like him already. We're good friends.
Yeah, that's one of my core character traits. You know what, Drew? I won't hate on you too much because there are some merits in that movie. Actually, now in retrospect, they're way better because they have such nostalgic camp. But I probably don't go more than a month without quoting Two-Face in that movie, especially if it's anytime I'm working on a project at home and I'm frustrated and I finally get something to work. I'll stand up and I'll say, "Fortune smiles. Another day of wine and roses," or in your case, beer and pizza. And it's like a quote that has always stayed with me and served me well.
Tommy Lee Jones doing his very best Jack Nicholson impersonation.
Oh, that's exactly what it was. That's
very
accurate.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about the new Batman starring Robert Pattinson.
Mm-hmm.
And before we dig into this, guys, we got a couple of comments. Carlin Stewart says, hey, yeah, no side vision. Yeah, none. And Adam West showed up and people knew who he was. No announcement needed. That is true. He never had to say, "I'm Batman."
Mm-hmm. He couldn't have had a phrase like that. He couldn't have done, "I am the night, I'm vengeance, I'm Batman." It would have been, something like, "I'm Go-Go in person." What was some of the other stuff from the time? Oh my God, go-go dancers. What else we got? We got to get all the tropes out there.
I love Genie. Surfers. I don't know.
What's that?
Surfers.
Kinda, yeah.
I mean, you remember Batman did the surfing episode with the bat shorts and the shark bat repellent.
That's an obscure, weird word that he could use. I am the tremolo. That's it.
The guitar sound.
I'm not mad at that.
It's cool that all these different iterations can be available to compare. It's another time when it's good to be us at this time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we at 15 didn't know how lucky we would be.
Well, me at 15, I kind of did.
Well, that's because you're only, 23?
A little older, but, we already had Spider-Man. Like, the
That's
first one came out. I was like, okay, we're going somewhere here. Iron Man started coming out. It was good.
See, I was out of college already by the first time the first Spider-Man came out, the first X-Men. I was, already deep into corporate America building a career. So I had lived through a lifetime of virtually no geekdom at the level that we started getting it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, we had Superman the movie in 78, which was epic.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had Batman 89.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, and the TV shows Wonder Woman, Batman 66, and
Hulk,
the Incredible Hulk, there was, and those were like, you got to think about this. As much as Adam West Batman has shaped pop culture, it was only on for 3 seasons. And like the original Star Trek, it hopped to different networks. And unlike the original Star Trek, most of the episodes were made up on set as they went along.
Really? Improv.
Yeah, great interview with Burgess Meredith. He talks about how they would come to the set with no script, and they would just make it up as they went.
Speaking of villains in that series, Batman, first of all, to set up a little bit of expectations from this point forward, Batman was my one comic fandom lifelong. So as a little kid, I would watch the old show that we're talking about. And then in the 90s or late 80s, early 90s, I got more curious when the movie came out in 89. I wanted to go backward and read up. So I read a lot of the big volumes, get myself kind of educated. I probably fell off somewhere before Azrael, maybe. And then didn't ever really come back, but I paid attention. I think the biggest character or the biggest story arc that I remember at the end of my active participation in the comics was the Tim Drake Robin arc, arrival of him. And then I kind of stayed out of it until the newer movies started to come out, the Dark Knight trilogy and all. And then I started going back to look up, okay, what was this? What was this? What's the reference here? And I haven't read again like I did back then, but I've gotten rekindled. Anyway, that said, I was an entire, let's see, you're PG-13, so I can say I was an entire grown-ass man before I realized that Cesar Romero had a mustache. I just thought it was like bad old makeup, it took HD to actually clue me in, and better modern photographs of characters on the set before I realized, oh, wow. When I was a kid, I just thought it was just this funky kind of cakey, and you couldn't tell on a old tube TV.
I didn't realize that he had a mustache until I was an adult too, because I never noticed anything weird in the TV episodes. It never looked odd to me. And then when I realized I was, what? Now I can't not see
it anymore. Yep.
But
right.
That was a miraculous thing. And then, so 1989, it kicks off this whole new, well, it was actually kind of a false start for superhero movies. Everyone thought that, we were going to have this whole big Renaissance thing. We had the follow-up with Dick Tracy, which bombed in the box office. Dark Man, which bombed in the box office. Billy Zane did The Phantom, which
one of my
bombed
favorites
in the box office, and I love that movie. Disney did The Rocketeer, which bombed in the box office, and for all of the coolness of Batman 1989, it never sparked what Iron Man did in 2008. But we did get the Batman animated series from Warner Brothers, which most people consider the greatest Saturday morning cartoon series of all time.
Hold on now. Hold on.
I didn't say I did. I said a lot of people do.
It's a reasonable statement to at least flesh
top
out.
5. Definitely top 5. Definitely top 5. Maybe top 3. Maybe top 3.
For Saturday morning, though? I remember it as an afternoon thing. When did it...
It originally debuted as a Saturday morning show, and then immediately it went into syndication as an after-school thing.
It was an iconic representation, and it would become something to which we would compare everything.
Yes,
in Batman.
Yeah,
not unlike the X-Men. I think they both hold the same position in the respective sides of the bicameral comic conversation, right? Like in the Marvel world, X-Men is the bar for animated series. In the DC world, Batman. Maybe before that, it was Super Friends in a totally different way.
Like,
well, yeah, Super Friends was a classic, and I have very fond memories of it. And we will be reviewing Super Friends at some point coming up on the Saturday morning show. But for me, the best Batman animated series was the same title as this movie, The Batman. And it was made by a studio, the same studio that did Jackie Chan Adventures.
What do you know about Jackie Chan Adventures, John Pyka?
I'm a fan. I love that show.
What do you know about Jackie Chan Adventures? People sleep on that show. That's one of the most, I think, underrated shows that had a nice plot, had a good storyline. It literally could have went on forever because of what it kind of represented. It was like Chinese Zodiac. Okay, now you can learn about Chinese Zodiac. You have a little background about that. Then I think the kid's name was Jade, and she was like, okay, she could run the mantle after the grandfather. It was like a whole thing. That was when Jackie Chan was like huge. But yeah, sorry. People always never talk about Jackie Chan Adventures, and that's one of the top. But go ahead, John Pyka. Go ahead.
They also did a series of what was the name of it? They were like not Lucha. They did do a Lucha Libre.
It's Mucha Lucha.
Yeah, they did that, but they did another one with this this bald yellow Shaolin monk kid and like a cowboy.
Shaolin Adventures.
Yeah.
Shaolin Showdown.
Yeah, that was a great series too. Those were great. But we are here to talk about this movie, The Batman. And I went and saw it Sunday. Drew, when did you see it?
I saw it Tuesday.
Okay, and Lucas, you've seen it twice now.
Yeah, and I had to wait a little because we had a family trip out of town to Vermont on the day, like we were flying when I would have normally been at the theater to see it on Thursday, the day it came out. And what was hilarious was the whole time we're on this trip, we landed in New Hampshire and drove a couple hours over to we involved Burlington, but we were in Stowe, Vermont, in all these neat towns, and every one of them has an old theater, and every single theater in big freaking letters, The Batman, just reminding me everywhere we went for 4 days straight. Like, I know I'm not getting to see the Batman. I understand I'm not getting to see it.
You didn't go see it in one of those old
screen
theaters?
Awesome.
Had I known that would happen to us, I would have scheduled it into the mix, but it wasn't in the cards. But my birthday was the 9th, and I went to see it that night as a birthday thing. Regular theater, my go-to theater, has the real high quality, nice place. Then again, I saw it Monday evening in IMAX because in my membership with this chain, it's all included. There's no extra price. And I was telling Johnny before we got on the air, I have now reconfirmed that IMAX would be a total waste of money had I paid extra for it.
Carlin Stewart is making some comments here. Star Blazers was our anime, and then
Classic.
he said left out Saturday Morning Super Friends. No, we didn't. We mentioned it, and
we got there.
And Michael Keaton in Val Kilmer's body would have been awesome. That's I don't know.
So what you're saying is you just wanted Keaton nips, right?
Would the nips have changed of a different person?
It's a good question because they were just basic nips. You know, they weren't particularly. I've always wanted to go back and see if they were two different sizes because they say
you got to measure. It's like girth and weight. It's a lot of things.
Now I'm gonna say something controversial here in a moment.
What?
But the 1966 Riddler, as Carlin Stewart brings up, which is appropriate because in Batman Forever, which you loved, Drew, Jim Carrey played the Riddler, and he was basically doing his impersonation of Frank Gorshin, who I believe Frank Gorshin, the 1966 Riddler, is the gold standard by which all other Riddlers will ever be measured.
Okay, here's a contention to that. Gotham, Enigma.
Oh yeah,
Gotham. Riddler is, I think, is the quintessential like thinker, kind of torn, multiple personalities. I think he embodies what the Riddler's personality should be. I think as far as like the goofy and charismatic and kind of like outlandish kind of characters you would see in exactly what you're saying, the Batman from those morning shows. That's what 1966 Riddler, and I think what Jim Carrey was doing. Jim Carrey was, I just say, he's one of my comic heroes, and I feel like when he hit that Riddler during the whole time, I was like on screen. I was like, yes, he's hitting everything, the darkness, but then the charismatic, and then of course the riddles was awesome. But let's go back to the Batman.
Yeah. And Carlin says Batman animated, his daughter Ginger loves it. And he says Frank Gorshin would have kicked Jim Carrey's butt for that portrayal. I don't know. I think he would have been flattered. I think it was a great homage to what Frank Gorshin did, as opposed to this movie, where the Riddler is a very, very twisted, very dark, disturbing character. And before we talk about that character, I do want to talk about Robert Pattinson as the Batman. I don't know about you guys, but I went into this a little bit skeptical, I think, as a lot of fans did.
Mm-hmm.
And I came out really a believer. I thought he was excellent as Batman. I wasn't wild about the emo Bruce Wayne so much. I prefer more of a dashing, debonair playboy Bruce Wayne. And from that perspective, I actually think George Clooney was the best choice for Bruce Wayne. Mm. But as Batman, man, I thought he nailed it. And I really liked the intensity he had. The one thing that irritated me a little bit was that this Batman did everything in slow motion. Mm-hmm. And that I get that was for dramatic effect and to build the intensity and create this tension. But I was like, just take the dang mask off already. Get to it, get to solving the crime. I really liked him. I thought he was far superior to Christian Bale. But, far superior to Christian Bale. But
my word.
But from kind of a just a sentimental point of view,
cool.
Michael Keaton is still my sentimental favorite Batman. What did you guys think about Robert Pattinson?
Man, I was pessimistic like you. So I had stages of pessimism. Stage one was the announcement before I had seen Tenet. And I was like, what? That guy? the suit's going to wear him from one side of Gotham to the other. Then I saw Tenet. And then I realized, a career happened after Twilight. This guy's legit. Okay. All right. I have some hope, but he's still going to need to eat like nothing but steaks and beans and go to the gym 32 hours a day. So I was cautious, but I was optimistic by that point. And then I was into it. I am a believer, as you said. I think it worked really well. I actually watched an interview with him about that conduct, that slow moving thing. And I forgot, I think it's Vanity Fair or one of them that does YouTube videos, a little short interview where he talks about taking it from the approach of like a witch doctor, like a spiritualistic kind of like, the way he put it was, I'm in this room with all these cops and I'm trying to get them to trust me, but I'm trying not to freak them out. But I'm carrying this kind of like motif of a seer.
He's
it's not
a
the
shaman.
word that he used in a way. Yeah. So the way he put it really made it make sense. It's like he tried to figure out, how do you exist among these cops? And what he said was, I came up with the solution that I should just be more of a wraith. I should float through the room. And I thought that was an interesting take. He talks about some of his choices. In fact, he made the choice to come out of the hallway in the beginning, and the guy says, "Who are you?" He made the choice that he should beat the living crap out of him first, then look down at his basically corpse and say, "I'm vengeance." So that was not even a director choice. The script called for it as the butt kicking line, but he decided it should go the other way, that he would be in that place. And as far as the emo thing goes, I think, first of all, they're hitting right across the target of who's going to see this movie. It's going to be the younger end of Gen X like me. Full Gen X, to be fair, like all of us, Johnny, are going to be into it. But I think the way they really want to score the hit is the younger Gen X, Gen Y, older Z, definitely the emo crowd that gets it. But at the same time, this is year 2. And if you think about Christian Bale's portrayal, when he was younger, he was also in a messy, long hair in his face, resenting everything kind of place. I think he's going to learn the mask of Bruce Wayne and separate these identities more and more as his representation of this character comes along through what I would assume will be multiple sequels.
Yeah. Drew, your thoughts? Robert Pattinson as Batman, Bruce Wayne.
So I am not a fan of the Twilight movies at all. So I as well came into this movie really angry at the choice, but I think he did. And I had to really think. I thought more of it as a year 1 instead of a year 2. I said, let me just put on my glasses as he's just starting, right? So he's fresh off of his parents kind of passing away, and now he's handed the keys to Gotham. So a lot of the brooding and things that he were doing was really about grief, of how he's dealing with grief and how he's dealing with sorrow, how he's dealing with trying to live up to the responsibilities that he's now taken on. So I think he did a good job on just like eye movement, or looking at, like, he was looking at that kid. He saw himself in that child. And I was like, okay, that was real good, like dramatic, like acting. I think that, again, he was a good Batman, but he wasn't a good Bruce Wayne. And to you guys' points, I think that that's what he needs to learn along the way. And I think that's what he's going to show, is that, okay, now that I'm Batman, I have to be Bruce Wayne as well to conduct my detective foresight and all that good stuff. So I really liked it. I don't know why. I don't know. It was a good taste savorer from Ben Affleck, and I was like, okay, Ben Affleck couldn't do this, and he did it the correct way. So I gave him a chance, and I loved it. I really loved this. I'm not going to hold my bets. I really loved this movie. I enjoyed every part of it, and I'm not a Batman DC person, and I was on the edge of my seat.
What do you guys think about the suit? That's something that I spent an inordinately large amount of time in my second viewing, especially since it was IMAX and it was enormous and I could look at details. You know, the movie doesn't appear to have any IMAX cuts in it, like Dark Knight. I forgot if all of them. Definitely the Joker installment had the two big IMAX scenes: the opening bank robbery and the trailer flip, which still aren't worth the price for these tiny suburban IMAXs, in my opinion. But this one, I didn't notice anything. It was letterboxed the whole time. I don't really know why, other than more clarity of the sound. But that's why you just don't go to crappy theaters. But I got to stare at the suit a lot, and I really appreciate, and I pulled it up just to see, like I pulled up a figurine that has good detail just so I could like see it. The whatever's going on the gauntlets, the little spines or arrows or whatever those are. And then
they were like crossbow bolts.
Yeah, kind of.
But he never used them.
No, it's like a total mystery. But the belt itself, I thought was fascinating. Yes. Everything about this suit is plausible. The Dark Knight trilogy does a good job with plausible in a science fiction bubble. Like you would still have to have Lucius Fox and all the operation behind you to get those things. This one was like, this guy could pull this off in the train station under Wayne Tower with just the help of an old British
like he went agent. He went to the army supply store and was just like, okay, let's paint this black.
The belt I really thought was an interesting departure from all the previous typical, you know, the utility belt was always a thing and it was always very polished. This has police style pockets, little woven leather pockets, and they stick out. It's inconsistent. Like one side has different pockets than the other. It's like it was put together for utilitarian purposes out of stuff that was already tactical black. It's like, you know, there's no spray painting of the stuff with you know, it's just there. And I still don't know what that big pouch was on his thigh.
The big pouch on his thigh. that stuff probably carried like the rope for the grappling hook and all of that. That's probably in that big pouch. Because that's not fitting in a little pouch on the belt. Right. One of the things I loved was the bat emblem. Which you know, they didn't explain it in the movie, but in the backstory, that is actually made from two halves of a gun, and in the backstory, it's supposed to be the gun that killed his parents. Well,
that's cool.
But I loved that the emblem was a tool, and a weapon, and it had function as well. And I really loved that this was like composite armor. It had a very almost a Mandalorian feeling to it.
Yes.
In that, you know, it was functional, it was modular, and man, it withstood machine gun fire, which you really got the sense of Batman's thinking, his intelligence, but also his toughness at the same time.
Hey, nobody ever shoots him in the chin.
No one shoots him in the face. I don't know what that's all about.
Actually, I think he does take
he gets one right here.
One little ding happens here, I think.
Yeah,
I think toward the end in the multi-Riddler showdown on top of the Jumbotron, that I think somebody gets a shot in because there's a little dent or a ding. But I did appreciate this mask for having these defined spaces that didn't appear to be there as a nod to Adam West eyebrows or scowly Batman forehead or none of those. It seemed like there were raised points in the mask. Yeah, there you go. It seems like it's there where punches would land.
Yes.
And it's almost like a superstructure support or a substructure support. And then I love the fact that the nose appears to have been an afterthought. Like this, this mask came together in pieces and the nose is kind of grafted in there as needed. And it's probably like a steel plate or something.
Because number one thing you don't want to get is punched in the temples. And as you can see, it's divoted on the sides, and it's like, okay, punch me here. You're going to get hurt more than I am.
Yeah.
One of the things I loved was the collar on the cape. I love that. I thought that was just such a neat detail, and I love that.
You know, would be good. You know, this would be good. I don't know if you saw this installment of Batman Knights. Like he's kind of like he's like a knight in rural Japan. Like that would be a good version of that. Like if he had like a full armor and then like a samurai sword. This is me. A nice samurai sword coming back.
Yeah, and the other thing I liked about this was that Robert Pattinson has said in interviews that he refused to bulk up and train. I mean, he's in shape, but they originally wanted him to add muscle and do the Chris Hemsworth workout, and he said, no, I'm not going to do that. And I like that he is thin. He is, he has that sleekness to him, even with the armor on. And to your point, Lucas, he very much had that wraith-like, physicality. A wraith is a good description.
Well, and I think I don't know how tall he really is, but I think he still managed to impose. And another thing I found fascinating, and this is a little bit suit, but also characterization and production choices. This is the first movie where we've ever had a focus on Batman's footsteps. I never remember having Batman's footsteps be a piece of the threat of Batman. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there was an obscure thing I didn't see, one of the many DC films, but I never remember anything giving us a cue of the boots. You could hear the cape flutter. You might hear bats chirp somewhere. You might hear a lot of warnings, but I've never experienced Batman lore where the clunk and almost spur-like jingle of the armor was part of the terror delivered in his presence. And it happens like at least twice, maybe 3 times in the movie. It's a focal point of the Foley.
Well, and if you remember, before even that, when criminals saw the bat signal,
right,
they started looking in the shadows, and they're like, okay, we're done here, because he could be right there. We're gone. And that was a neat aspect of this too that I really liked. One thing we didn't mention was, his methodical movements were also part of his detective skills. He's taking in the room, and we find out later that his contacts are cameras, which I thought was great because, again, that could be real. With today's technology, that's a possibility. That's a thing. And so we had the whole 1930s, as Carlin says, detective film noir mixed with the current tech, and it really made Gotham the gritty sister city to shiny metropolis. That's definitely a thing.
This is the darkest treatment, I think, so far, and Gotham itself as a series was pretty dark. And I thought they had notched it, like the Nolan films did dark. Gotham series notched it up to a little more dark. This one really accomplished just a whole motif of dark, brooding decay.
Because it's raining all the time. It was raining in every single scene, kind of like in Blade Runner. And and Blade Runner was a dystopian future. So, was this a similar situation, or is it just in a bad climate zone that it's always dark and always raining?
Yeah. Now, I don't want to jump out of sequence, but since I brought the suit up, I feel like I have to bring up the car.
Do we have to talk about it?
It's my favorite Batmobile.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah. You know why? Because it was that total retro muscle car thing going on. I loved it. I want that. I've never wanted a Batmobile before. This one, I could drive in.
I've liked a lot of them. This one, I thought was perfectly in keeping with the realism at hand.
Yes.
It's legitimately a vehicle that he could have gone and hobbled together and ripped basically the whole trunk out to install a rocket engine that you see him working on sequence by sequence throughout little shots in the film. And when he finally whips the thing out, you can tell it's kind of one of the first experiences. Like, he doesn't do it perfectly, but he also knows that it's terrifying and he uses it as a tool. And then it's another opportunity for the sound in this film to just shine. I'm going to be real pissed the next round of awards next year if this movie can't get some kind of sound nominations.
That growl when that car starts I was like, okay, I know why they did this. I know exactly why they did this. I wasn't a fan of the car when I first saw like the shots and everything like that, but when that growl, that first, I was like, okay, because now to your point, the footsteps were a part of the scariness or the broodiness or the fear that the villains, now he has the car that they're scared of now too. So when they heard that, they was like, oh shoot, we got to get the heck out of here. Because now Batman's coming with a muscle car that could just run you over. And it's perfect too, because when you think of muscle car, you think of invulnerability. So it could take a shot and keep on pushing. So I was not a fan when I first saw it, but again, like this whole movie, I am a fan now.
I want to know what the Penguin's car was, because there was a ridiculous amount.
I'm saying Rolls Royce.
I couldn't tell, and I kept squinting and looking. I gotta know, because there's a certain amount of disbelief that I was unable to suspend after a while. It's like, nah.
See, I thought it was a Honda Civic.
It wasn't that low end, but it's like you're on the highway. When they're on the highway, it's like, okay, no, he should have overtaken him easily at this point. I get that he's probably just playing with him, but I did appreciate, the total chaos of it, and the fact that it wasn't telegraphed. In a lot of cases, you see superheroes get out of stuff with a painfully presented, like that ramp that shows up just in time for him.
Oh my goodness, that was
in so many superhero stories. That would have fallen off the back of the truck 6 miles ago and be dragging the pavement, and you would have known extra for sure that it was there. So you'd know that's. But in this, it's like there's chaos, and this thing just barely falls down, and he spots it and goes for it. And I thought that was, it was that, Deus ex chaos that superheroes tend to enjoy. But it wasn't like, here's a few beats for you to get it. It's like, wait, what? Oh, a ramp fell. Oh, wow. Okay. Like it was more real life.
Yeah, and Carlin says that car chase scene was so flat out awesome. It was good. It was really good. And you mentioned something there, Lucas, about superhero movies. I didn't think this was a superhero movie. This was a detective movie. This was a police procedure movie with the detective just so happens to have this persona. A vigilante persona, but it was a detective film.
I thought so.
Well,
too.
And in that vein, I really liked the pair of Batman and Gordon in this. I really felt like they didn't have to go into a lot of depth to build a good pair of guys. And that scene where they're going into the I forgot what building that the orphanage, and he's like, no guns. No, that's your thing. He just straight up, no, I've got the gun and it's staying.
I really loved this Jim Gordon. I really thought he was the most Jim Gordon that we've seen in a Batman movie.
Yeah.
I just felt like the casting was perfect, that he acted it perfectly. Of all the Jim Gordons I've seen, he stood head and shoulders above the rest for me.
I'd pay money for Jeffrey Wright to read me like a Claire's Boutique catalog. I mean, I really don't. It doesn't matter what he says. Every word the man says, I'm just like, say more. Say more things. Do more stuff.
Well, if we're going to talk about that kind of persona, Zoe Kravitz.
Oof.
I have a note here that says I need more Catwoman transform. Zoe Kravitz transferring to Catwoman. That little scene when she was getting ready to be Catwoman. Mwah.
They did just the right balance of sexy with real and practical. I think she corrected any missteps of the Halle Berry attempt. Which,
well, now
let's
wait.
not blame Halle Berry, was
We
all
cannot-
about the
yeah.
movie production.
And Halle
the
Berry
job.
was great. Halle Berry was great. The
Was
script,
she?
oh, she was really good. Listen, if you just isolate her performance from the story, phenomenal. And of course, I have to say that because she's my girlfriend. But I do have to say that we've seen a lot of Catwomen in the Batman mythos on TV. 3 different ones on the 66 series. We saw Michelle Pfeiffer. We've seen Anne Hathaway, and now we've seen Halle Berry, and now we see Zoe Kravitz. And this Catwoman was still sentimental favorite for me is Michelle Pfeiffer, but for different reasons. But this Catwoman was the closest to the contemporary comics iteration of Catwoman. This is one of the things that DC does really well, is that when you see a movie, if you see this movie and you're like, ooh, I want to read more Catwoman, and you go pick up the current run of Catwoman, she's going to look exactly like she looks on screen, which I think is smart. Marvel doesn't do that, and it's really hurt their sales. DC has really picked up on this, and they've gone to great lengths to have their comics mirror the movies, because so many people are coming from that. There are far more people watching the movies than there are reading comics. The average comic sells about 35,000 copies a month. That's not enough people to make a hit movie. So, when they're coming from the movie experience to the comics, they need to see something that they recognize. And that's that. I really like that they did that with this iteration of Catwoman. And plus Zoe Kravitz.
Oh yeah. Yep. She sets a lot of bars. And I meant that in a clean way. But
I didn't.
Is she have we seen an animated African American Catwoman? Because she would be the third, right? Or fourth? If
there's an animated one. I think it was one in Batman the Brave and the Bold, but
okay.
But I don't know if anybody counts that one.
Well,
okay.
And Ursula Andress was the first Black Catwoman, and she was great.
Eartha Kitt, yeah.
Eartha Kitt. What did I say? I said Ursula Andress. I don't know why I said that. Eartha Kitt.
Yeah.
And she was fantastic. And but since then, Halle Berry,
right?
And now, the third. So
the third. I think she doesn't correct course, but she recenters Catwoman, and especially let's be real, the other two were gimmicky in their own way. She's naturally accepted as who she is, where the Halle Berry thing was oh, it's Halle Berry and it's a Black Catwoman. Yes. Ooh. And then back in the 60s, it was ooh, look how brave and special we are, or playing to some stereotypes even. This is the first truly natural, oh, it just works.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't a trying too hard or trying the wrong.
And it works with the theme of the movie, too, because if we're talking about year 1, year 2 Batman, even for her to have almost a stocking cap on her head, it was kind of like a hat that she created into little ears and things like that was very, very centering of the whole story. I was like, okay, they thought about every little detail with it. And again, more Zoe Kravitz get into the Batwoman suit. I would take a whole reel of that day in, day out, 30 minutes. I watched a 3-hour movie on that.
Well, and everything about this movie, as we've said, felt like it could really happen.
Exactly.
When Batman jumps off the building, he zips up the base jumper suit. You know, it's not a cape that transforms magically into a glider.
Right. Because again, he's got to be able to go get it, not have Lucius make it.
Yeah,
exactly.
And Catwoman felt very organic in that same way, and her motivation was so good. I really felt like she was the best motivated Catwoman that we've ever seen. You know, she's not just stealing because Kitty likes pretty things. She was, you know, trying to get back at Falcone, who's slighted her, who's wronged her, and I love that. What's that, Drew?
Are you gonna say it?
Oh well,
are we gonna?
You already warned about spoilers.
Okay.
Yeah, she wants to whack Daddy. We can say that. I mean it in the clean way. Well, the death way, but still, you know, the murdering, the mob way.
The special.
Yeah, I got in trouble for saying that one time. Remember?
Oh yeah. Now
there's a story there, Drew. I'll tell you one day.
I also really appreciated the fact that the backstory made more sense, because a lot of times, though, I will say I did like Anne Hathaway's take on like I'm Catwoman to punish the rich.
Yeah,
because there's going to be an uprising of regular people, and I want to be part of it, and that's cool. I like that, but I think the weaving into the mob story. This was as much a mob movie as a police movie in a flavored way. It wasn't like just steeped in it, unless you count. I'm sure one of the next people we'll talk about, you know, unless you count Colin Farrell playing Al Pacino playing the Penguin. But,
I liked him. I thought he was good.
Maybe Robert De Niro. Maybe he's playing Robert De Niro playing.
I literally couldn't put my finger on it, but you're right. It felt like Godfather, almost Goodfellas-esque.
Yes.
But was it Sacha Baron Cohen who was playing? Not Sacha Baron Cohen. Who I'm thinking?
Are you talking about Falcone?
Falcone. Who was playing? What's his name?
That's John Turturro.
I cannot picture him other than from that movie with Adam Sandler. Don't Mess with the Zohan. I don't know why I can't like get that on my head, but when I saw on my screen, I was like, "Oh, this guy was in Don't Mess with the Zohan." But
he didn't come through for me. I actually had to like look it up because I didn't realize that it was him. He was just enough, and he's not as bad of an actor as the Transformers films would have you believe.
No.
And he really, like, I think he worked in the role. You know, I would have liked maybe a little bit bigger guy. He seemed like kind of a wiry fella to have made it to the top of the mob, but I bought into it, and I bought into the Penguin thing. It's just like, I don't really know why they chose Colin Farrell. Like, they could have put almost any good actor in all of that and then told them, hey, do Goodfellas or maybe Big Boy from Dick Tracy a little bit. Like, you know, every time
I didn't even realize it was Colin Farrell until just now.
Oh, okay.
I was today years old when I realized who that was.
Yep.
Really?
Like, you know, he takes so many pages out of the tropes, but it kind of works because of the tropes.
Yes.
Like, we all accept it because The Sopranos did it, and, you know, the prequel movie, I can't remember the name, Saints of Newark.
Yep.
You know, these tropes are always there. So, like, when a mobster gets, you know, the feeling that they're being slighted, they go, hey! And, you know, and he just does all those tropes. So it's okay. But if they're going to carry that character forward, they're going to have to add.
They're building a whole new series about him, so they have all the time in the world, I guess.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I love John Turturro as Carmine Falcone, and I've been a big fan of his for years, since "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?"
Oh, that's a good one.
And you really see his range as an actor when you put those side by side. You know. Don't look for the treasure. And then he's Mr. Slick Falcone. And I loved all the little, you know, political backstabbings within the mob. And I loved all of that. I thought that was wonderfully layered, and it just added to that whole detective story. But the real thing that we need to talk about.
Can we talk about it? Are we going to talk about it?
Is the villain in this movie.
Yes.
The Riddler. Because I found him absolutely terrifying. And from this perspective, we've talked about how real this movie felt. The fact that you had this lunatic whack job on the dark web gathering a following who took action and showed up to pick people off with their rifles felt so real to me in today's climate. And the director said that if he had known that some things were going to happen when they were originally making this movie, he would have changed it. He would not have had that scene in the movie.
Reminds me very 10,620.
Oh man,
you know what I mean.
I'm glad he didn't have that sequence of events occur, because I would have lost a lot of respect for that choice, because I'm big on being brave and sticking it out there, and I'm glad that he didn't make that change.
Yeah, and I just felt like, you know, that whole scenario felt so real to me, and it felt so terrifying. And my twisted mind, I'm thinking, I'm surprised this kind of scenario has not happened yet. Every time I'm in a big crowd, like at an event, I'm looking around at angles and shadows and, you know, thinking, you know, like, I can't believe we've never heard a story of some psychopath going into a haunted woods with a real chainsaw. And, you know, I just gave someone an idea. I'm so sorry. But you know what I'm saying?
But you're right about, he came off as a grounded, believable freakazoid in a modern context, but he had all the flaws. Like, he's got the glasses on the outside of the mask, which is like, at first glance, it's laughable until you think about the fact that he's got such bullcrap going on in his life that for whatever reason, that's the only choice he has. Whether his eye condition prevents him from wearing contacts, or he's too poor to do better than some cheap glasses, but like he's stuck with it, and he's got this like totally jacked up. Like, as you get to see more of him and you realize the saran wrap is going on, and that the mask is just a basic mask, and you see him talking about it in the chat threads on his social media,
where you can buy it. And, you know.
It's really fascinating. Yet at the same time, inside, once he's unwrapped, so to speak, he's the same kind of psycho nerd Riddler that you really need him to be. And he's so nuts that, like, he's glad that his plan is working. He's thrilled to be arrested. You know, everything is going according to plan. He's got it all mapped out. And then when it doesn't work, he totally loses it. But in a weird, psycho, whiny way that really works. And I don't think he'll stay the same way. I think he may lean into the nutty, flippant thing given his new roommate at the end of the film.
Well, you know, you mentioned the glasses, and I think he wore the glasses prominently, not because he didn't have any other choice. I think he was telegraphing who he really was. He wanted to be caught.
That's what I was thinking.
And those were so distinctive that, you know, and you know, he was, Carlin makes a great point. He was brilliant, manipulative, twisted, and he used Batman as a tool. He really did. He led Batman along by a nose ring until it was too late. But he wanted to be caught because he wanted to be a martyr, because he knew when he was arrested in the way that he was, his followers would see him in that martyrdom role and take up his cause even more with even more vigor.
All I can say is the duct tape budget in this movie is astronomical. Astronomical. I was like, there's so much duct tape. It really, like, and I really thought about it like connection between Saw and it. I like I like sick, twisted things. Okay, let's just put that out there, right? I like a good like killing spree, things like that. So just humor me for what I'm about to say. So the ideas that he had on how to torture these people was brilliant, because there was no way they was going to get out. He can get his message to who he needs to get his message to, and always timed to be correct at this specific moment. The best part I love of the movie is when he's like, Batman's in his cell. He's like, "Oh, you haven't figured it out yet? I thought you were smarter." You were smarter than you're not as smart as I thought you were.
Right.
I was like, dang, he literally to what you're saying, his point, he wanted to get caught, and you're messing up his plans by not being smart.
And he disses him so hard in that. And then the way that played, I saw it, and then I saw a couple of YouTubers review it, and then I went back and saw it again, and I'm still 100% on board with the idea that they play that scene with just the right ambiguity, where there's always a percentage of your curiosity if he knows who Batman is. Like the dialogue is structured in a way that you realize, oh, okay, he was just saying it about his next target, but then is there a little part of him that maybe thinks he has it figured out and he keeps wanting to poke him? And then
I think that was for us.
Maybe,
I think that was for us to lead us down that path, and I liked that they didn't go there.
But Batman does stay back in the back of the room in the shadow, and he does tell the cops like this, or he tells Gordon this is the end of the Batman. He's pretty sure he's been found out.
Exactly. He thinks he
has been. He doesn't step up to the glass.
We think he has been. Bruce thinks he has been, but then when we find out, oh, the Riddler doesn't really know.
Right.
That was more satisfying to me than Bruce Wayne having to figure out how to deal with this problem.
Yeah. And they lifted a little bit of a vibe of Hush by giving him a orphan peer, watched you my whole life kind of angle. It gives it a little tiny touch of the Hush thing without having to be that. And on first viewing, I thought, they could have just as well had it as Hush or an owl.
Yep.
Then I saw it again and decided, no, I can dig this take on it, especially considering that there might be an evolution of his identity to some extent.
Now, I hope when they do a sequel, and they've already greenlit a sequel, that they don't go down the route of bringing in the Joker. I think
it's going to be Killing Joke. It's going to happen. So you just get ready.
No. I hope no. I hope not.
Oh, I don't
what
know
I would rather see.
That's a lot of casting.
I would rather see these Riddler acolytes kind of evolve and become the Court of Owls. I think Court of Owls is going to be a better storyline for this Batman. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, go read some of the Court of Owls stuff. It's recent material, which falls in line with the recent aesthetics and the contemporary iteration of Catwoman. And Carlin Stewart says that Arkham Asylum was high ground and safe. So his arrest keeps him safe from the flooding. I do have to say, I was a little bit over the let's blow up Gotham, let's destroy Gotham, let's cut off Gotham from the rest of the world, let's flood Gotham trope. That's been done quite a bit, but
I was today years old when I found out that Arkham was named after a prominent person in Gotham. I did not know that.
So nor did I until this movie.
I was like, wow.
I think that might have been added into this story.
I think so.
Okay, it's not.
But it works, and it was an empty space. I love when people go back and add lore in a gap. And I don't know, I could be wrong, but I don't think anyone's ever addressed any of that. And having the maiden name family tree thing play in with the Waynes, it kind of works. And what it also does is it plays to what we all experience again in real life. I mean, look at, back in Nashville, you've got Frists and other families that are powerful and political, and you're kind of tired of hearing their name on everything. And then up here in Grand Rapids, we've got Van Andels and DeVosses, and you're kind of tired of hearing about all that being the basis of everything. And I forgot where you're located, Drew, but I'm sure
Charlotte.
bull crap going on. Oh, Charlotte, yeah, you got some old plantation powerful fucking freaking. You get one. We push my plantation button and I can't control it. So, I think it's relevant because we all live in these cities where there's this old money, old power, old names. So having that tie in, I think that really works.
And then I really wanted to know more about that story, honestly, when I heard that, because I'm like, okay, was it supposed to just be that the institution supposed to be for helping people, and then it turned into the criminally insane? Like there's a whole still backstory to that I want to know.
Well, it feeds into Batman's own, Bruce Wayne's own mental illness.
Yeah.
So, and that's a whole nother topic for another time.
Well, and that's very much more acceptable. We have much more knowledge and acceptance now that that's the kind of stuff that sticks around and goes generationally. Like it's easier to write that into a film now. 20 years ago, somebody would have been mad at you. Well, just because his granny was crazy doesn't mean he's crazy. Well, yeah, now we kind of know that it might.
We don't say crazy.
Oh, right. Yeah.
We don't talk about Bruno. No.
I'm being Bruno for Halloween, by the way. That's
epic. That's epic.
Go ahead.
Well, so guys, we're already at an hour, and we could talk about this probably all night, but I thought this film was the superior DC EU film to date. I think it sets a high bar for everything else that is to come after. For me, it's kind of like the Captain America, the Winter Soldier of the DC EU universe. Now, whether this Batman is in universe or not remains to be seen, because we are getting Michael Keaton back in the Flash movie. But, I thought this set a really high bar because this wasn't just a superhero movie. It was a true compelling drama. And there's a lot to be said when it comes time for award seasons for this film.
Yeah, I hope so. And we mentioned a lot of actors by name. Paul Dano is the Riddler in this, and I had never paid a lot of attention until I went back to look like, what else has he done? Oh, wow. Okay. I got to give a shout out to Andy Serkis's portrayal of Alfred. Also, just glad to see actual Andy Serkis, his physical form taking his due now in these various films. It's great. And he's a good actor. And it's great to see him back out. And the last little shout out is the score. I can't quit listening to this score. That sonata that's included in the original soundtrack score recording. It's a 12-minute piano sonata of all the music in the whole film. It's so good. It plays in the credits in the theater. And then this is probably arguably the best use of Nirvana music that I've seen in the past 20 years.
Did anyone feel like the main Batman theme sounded a lot like the Imperial March, Darth Vader's theme?
1,000%.
A little bit, yeah.
Why do you think they did that?
I don't know. I thought it was just. I didn't think it was.
That wasn't coincidental. There was nothing coincidental in this movie.
Do you think because he's the Dark Knight, you just want to tie him to Darth Vader some way? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know though. Giacchino has done so many nerd scores. Like I'm trying to find his lineup.
Do you think maybe it's because there's debate among Star Wars fans about whether Darth Vader is a villain or a hero? And it all depends on your perspective, right? He's a hero of the Empire, but to the rebellion, he's a villain. And so is Batman kind of in that same vein?
But technically, he killed a bunch of Padawans too, and for no reason. So we can't. He is a villain. But I understand what you're saying. It's all about perspective, right?
Many of the truths that we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
I think the other side of looking at that is, as a composer, Giacchino is probably not going to succeed in keeping his wires uncrossed. I mean, if you go down the list, the Jurassic Worlds, the Batman, Spider-Man, Star Trek, Star Wars, Incredibles, I don't think this guy can sound like he's not ripping off something, because he's spread across so many of these franchises that he's out of original sounds to make.
Well,
we've all heard all of the sounds that he can come up with.
When I think about the Incredible sounds very similar to that Spider-Man sound as well, like that whole.
Well, and I never felt like it was a rip-off or a jip. I felt like it was a very tongue-in-cheek homage.
It could be.
Yeah. So, Drew, your final thoughts on the Batman.
Final thoughts. I really love this movie. Went in very pessimistic, came out very optimistic. I think that Patterson did a good job. Again, Zoe Kravitz, eat you for lunch. Delicious. Anyway, and I think the Riddler is a good start to a very maniacal villain in the Batman universe. So instead of it being more of a trope of like, okay, these people are like mad, now they're creating chaos. So I would love to see what this world's Batman does, and I hope, because Flash is my favorite DC character, I hope he brings maybe this Batman, we see cross worlds, so we see different versions of the Riddler. So I really liked it. I don't think it's going to be canon with the current DC universe, but I think it's a good start to a Batman franchise that's a little darker, a little bit more Law and Order SVU.
There you go.
Tied with the mob.
and I like what you said about the maniacal. I think he can take that spot, and maybe that the Joker tease that we received is more about the advice that's being put in his head, and we don't actually see that Joker come to fruition. Though if we did, he could probably pull it off. I forget the actor's name. It's the guy that's in Eternals. He plays the guy with the mind control power.
Oh, Druig.
Yeah, him. That's the actor that did that shot. And so he could pull it off, but I don't think they need to. And they've made no commitment. They said, hey, just because he's in that scene doesn't mean we're going to use him. Which is, that's perfectly fine. And I think you're right about this darker thing. And I'm hoping that DC is developing a theme with a giant 70s Tarantino style title that takes over the whole screen as an indicator that you're watching what should just be branded DC Black for all of us that are true believers. Because Joker did it, giant letters, and now Batman has done it. And I hope that the next time they make another dark DC film, they keep that motif to tell us.
The next one is Black Adam, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be as dark as this movie. I think it's more Shazam light.
Yeah.
Maybe Shazam dark.
There you go.
Yeah.
We shall see. Well, guys, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight and having this conversation. It's always a lot of fun. And
thank you.
Before we leave, I got to remind our viewers that we are sponsored by Loot Crate. Visit www.lootcrate.com. And I know I just rankled Lucas's feathers by using the triple W, but use promo code Serial10 and take 10% off. And we are, of course, part of the Serial Box Network, along with some other great shows. Check it out at serialboxnetwork.com. And with that, guys, that's it. That's all we got. That's all the time we have. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for watching and commenting. Continue to comment. And make sure if you like this show, tell 200-300 of your closest friends and family to come join the fun. And until the next time, we'll catch ya on the flip side.